Welcome to Week 2 of Information Studies 200. This week, you'll start getting to know Wikipedia, likely better than you have before. But if you've already edited in Wikipedia, this will be a refresher for you. Even if you have experience as a Wikipedian, you will need to enroll in the Wikipedia side of this course. More on that a little bit later. In Week 1, in addition to your self-introductions, you each created your first Wikipedia blog entry. You did that by locating, citing, and describing a scholarly article about Wikipedia. I assigned that for several reasons. An essential part of being information literate is knowing how to find information you need. That is why we have learning outcomes 1, 2, and 3. There's a list of those in the syllabus. Because we are learning together in a university, I want you to get to know how to use and find scholarly information. Scholarly is a type of information that has a target audience of academic readers. Now that you are a student at CSU East Bay, you qualify as an academic reader. You're in a specialized target audience. In addition to being part of that audience, we all also are part of the general reader audience. Scholarly information has several identifying characteristics. 1, references. 2, author qualifications. And 3, vocabulary. When creating scholarly information, we use references to show where we got the information that we use. That can be done with footnotes or endnotes or in in-text citations. That not only shows respect for the sources we rely on, but it avoids plagiarism. As the framework for information literacy reminds us, scholarship is a conversation. So, we create new information based on existing information, much in the way we gain insights about a question in our lives by talking it over with our friends. Author qualifications matter in academic information because we want to have confidence that the person providing the information is believable. The framework reminds us of that in the idea that authority is constructed and contextual. That means that each researcher develops their knowledge base as part of a community of researchers, and in the context of a particular subject focus. My own research focus is experimental music. I developed expertise from years of reading, writing, composing, and performing with others in this field. That's part of why I have my faculty position here as the Performing and Visual Arts Librarian. Any source that claims to be scholarly needs to provide information about the qualifications of the author. Good writing for any target audience is clear and readable, but in scholarly writing we expect our readers to have some prior knowledge about a subject to be able to understand what's being written. Scholarly information needs to push beyond the introductory level so that we build new knowledge and stimulate creative thinking. Often the clue is in the vocabulary used. This is what sociologists call signifiers. We all use signifiers every day. The clothes you choose signifies your self-image to anyone who looks at you. The way you speak signifies your community affiliations. For example, my Gulf Coast accent becomes more pronounced when I spend time back home with family and friends in Houston. So, if an information source uses specialized technology, provides references, and provides credentials, affiliation of the author, those are clues that the source is signifying to you that it is scholarly. After you watch this video, and before you do the rest of the work for this course this week, please take 15 minutes and pick an article someone else in class wrote about in their Wikipedia blog entry 1. In that 15 minutes, scan the article for clues that it's a scholarly source. You can use their information as well, but think about that meaning. So Wikipedia is not intended to be a scholarly source. It is intended to serve general audiences. Think of the familiar classification of information sources as primary or secondary. A primary source is an eyewitness account, an original document. An example of this is this resolution supporting reparations for the descendants of enslaved Africans. This was introduced into Congress in the U.S. in 2004. A secondary source is examining information from primary sources. In this case, this book From Here to Equality by Darity and Mullen that examines the issue of reparations is a secondary source. Wikipedia, like any encyclopedia, is neither a primary nor a secondary source. Wikipedia is a tertiary source, a third source. Wikipedia summarizes and presents information from other sources. So, as we get to know Wikipedia, we'll notice that some articles do a great job of providing reliable information with references written for general readers to understand. Some dive in way too deep, way too fast. Some are just stems. Ideally, a Wikipedia article will provide layers of information and pointers to additional sources. But again, is Wikipedia a scholarly source? No. The definition of scholarly is rooted in North Atlantic intellectual tradition, and in part because of the dominant culture obsession with individualism, a source needs to identify the credentials of an author in order to qualify as scholarly. In Wikipedia, the authors and editors of these articles are anonymous, but that does not mean the information is unreliable. That's why we contributors to Wikipedia cite our sources. There's a lot more to explore in terms of intellectual traditions, how communities construct knowledge, etc., and I'm happy to talk more about that during my office hours. As you work with this week's curriculum, keep in mind that we're exploring Wikipedia because it is an example of community working together to share information. Wherever we look in Wikipedia, we see examples of those 6 frameworks for information literacy in action. Authority is constructed and contextual. Information creation as a process. Information has value. Research as inquiry. Scholarship as conversation, and searching as strategic exploration. This Blackboard site is the home base for our INFO200 course, but as a great deal of the work you will do will take place in our course that is online on Wikipedia. Actually, it is provided from the Wikipedia Foundation and is part of their Teach with Wikipedia project. I've been a part of that for about 5 years now. To succeed in this course, you have to do that work on the Wikipedia side as well as the activities you access and turn in via Blackboard. If you don't already have a Wikipedia account, you'll need to establish one. There's a useful video on how to do that, including how to create your own Wikipedia name. Make sure to keep track of your Wikipedia name and password. After you establish your Wikipedia account, follow the link in Enroll in our Wikipedia course so that you can access the course material and I will be able to evaluate your work. Read the information about editing and Wikipedia and evaluating Wikipedia provided in those links in the last item for this week. They are essential preparation for next week when you'll start your training in how to edit Wikipedia. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, I respect and value your presence in this course. Stay well.